All right, what's going on YouTube? This is BoxingWave. I just want to address the whole Max Kellerman thing with Manny Pacquiao being the greatest in this era. Briefly, I'm not going to make a super long video. I do think it was a direct shot at Floyd Mayweather, okay? I was listening to Boxing Ego's video this morning. He made about a 40-minute video discussing the whole um, Max Kellerman's statement about him being the best in this era. Manny Pacquiao being the best in this era. Okay, and the reason why Max Kellerman said that is because he feels that because Manny Pacquiao won more titles and more divisions, moving up in weight and everything. This is what the reasoning behind of him making that statement right after him defeating Timothy Bradley for the third time. Well, in their third fight. All right. Um, so I do believe it was a direct shot at Floyd. And I'm seeing a reaction. Everyone seems to be talking about that more than the actual fight between Pacquiao and Tim Bradley. Um, I didn't really think anything of it. You know, I was not surprised. Um, Mayweather is entertaining, possibly coming back and fighting one more fight or whatever, getting that 50-0. All right. A lot of people want him to come back and get that 50-0. A lot of people feel that he shouldn't have even retired without getting 50-0, without being 50-0. And, with all the controversy about Manny Pacquiao's shoulder in the first fight, there's a lot of fans that believe that if Manny Pacquiao was healthy, he would have beaten Floyd for sure. Okay? Now, I didn't take the comment too seriously, okay? I do believe that they want a rematch, all right? Um, the amount of money, obviously they wouldn't make the same amount of money that they made in the first fight, but they can obviously sell the fight by saying, look, Manny Pacquiao was not 100% in that first fight. This is the reason why he lost. Even though Pacquiao was throwing right hands throughout the whole fight, this is the reason why they lost the fight. Manny Pacquiao wasn't 100% healthy. They want a rematch, all right? I don't even know if Max Kellerman actually believes that. Maybe he does, okay? Whether he believes it or not, that Pacquiao's the greatest in this era, even over Floyd Mayweather, even though Floyd beat him, it really doesn't matter to me, okay? The reason why he made that statement is, in my opinion, is because they want another fight. Okay, they want to generate the money. They want Floyd to come back and fight Manny Pacquiao. There's plenty of fans that want that. Plenty of Pacquiao fans that want Manny Pacquiao to have another shot at Floyd Mayweather. I don't think it's that much of a big deal that Max said that. It's his personal opinion. He's a commentator. I know he's on HBO. Okay, so what he says holds much more weight than what I say or any other regular boxing fan, okay? So it does hold a lot of weight what he says on national television. But at the same time, it's just his opinion. We don't have to agree with it, whether he believes what he said is true or not, okay? It doesn't make much sense because, you know, why would you make this claim after Pacquiao beats Tim Bradley in the third fight when you thought that Pacquiao beat him in the first fight? He obviously beat Tim Bradley in the second fight, and in the third fight, he obviously beat him then, okay? He fought Marquez 4 times, all right? Got knocked out in the last one. A lot of people thought Marquez won the third one. A lot of people feel Marquez won the first 2 fights, okay? I mean, look what happened when Marquez got in the ring with Floyd Mayweather, all right? I'm not even, listen, we talked about this for years, even before the fight, when the fight was announced between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. I made 5, 6, 7 videos discussing all of these things before that fight, all right? What I am not trying to do here is get baited back into having these arguments about who was better between the two when they both already fought, okay? It just doesn't make any sense to me, all right? If that's how he feels, if that's how plenty of fans feel, that's fine. You know, I remember the first reaction after the fight was over. I remember a lot of people feeling that Floyd won the fight. You know, as time went on, you know, people started to say Pacquiao, you know, would have won the fight if he was 100% healthy. You know, he had a shoulder injury, and that's why Floyd won. It was a boring, terrible fight, blah, 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 whatever, you know. But as of right now, it's starting to look like Floyd did not get any credit for beating Manny Pacquiao. You know, we're a whole year later, okay, and people are not giving Floyd the credit for beating Manny Pacquiao because the fight was boring or because Pacquiao was injured and whatever, you know, all these other things. People refuse to give Floyd credit for winning that fight, okay? In my opinion, if Floyd was to come back and fight him again, he probably still wouldn't get credit, you know? He wouldn't get credit. Unless he actually knocked him out, he's not going to get credit for beating Manny Pacquiao, all right? If he were to come back and fight Pacquiao, fine. I have no problems with Floyd returning and fighting Manny Pacquiao. He could do whatever he wants, you know? There's other fights I want to see because I know from the first fight, I was not entertained by the first fight, okay? It wasn't really that great of a fight, partly due because Manny Pacquiao just didn't make it a good fight, you know? He didn't really, I don't really think he challenged Floyd in that fight, okay? Regardless of whoever, whatever, I don't think it was that much of a challenge for Floyd Mayweather in that fight. And I remember the reaction of people at first felt exactly how I felt. You know, that the fight wasn't good. Floyd clearly won, and that was that. It was over. You know, whether or not you thought it was a boring fight, a lot of people say that with every Mayweather fight. They said the same thing with Canelo. They said the same thing when he fought Guerrero. They said the same thing when he fought Maidana in the second fight. It goes on and on and on and on. You know, he's not going to get the credit. He's not going to get it. If you thought Floyd was a boring fight 5, 6 years ago, if you thought that when he beat Oscar De La Hoya, he was running, you know, and that it was a really close fight, you know, and Floyd ran, that's the reason why, you know, Oscar could have won that fight. If you thought that so many years ago, you're not going to think any different now when he's older, fighting guys like Andre Berto and Maidana and stuff. You're not going to think any different because he's fighting the same way that he fought back then. Okay? But anyway, back to Max Kellerman. I don't think people should take it that seriously. You know, they won a second fight, and they're already building up a possibility of it happening. Not saying that it will happen or whatever, but the buzz is there, okay? This is what happens in boxing. You know, you fight someone and everyone is talking about you again. When Pacquiao got knocked out by Marquez, everybody thought Pacquiao was done. It was over for him, okay? But he comes back. He beats up Brandon Rios. Brandon Rios, okay? Brandon Rios, the guy that just got knocked out by Tim Bradley. He comes back and beat him, and everybody's way, you know, back to saying, oh, Floyd will destroy, you know, he'll destroy Floyd. That's just how boxing is, okay? You're as good as your last fight. You know, you win a fight and people start thinking you're the greatest thing ever, you know? I don't even remember the guy's name that Kell Brook just fought. Not saying that he's losing or anything, but Kell Brook could fight anyone. And people, just because he's beating guys that he should beat, that he should stop, people are going to go on and say, well, he's the best thing at 147 because of the way that he's beating the guys he fought. It's easy to beat those guys he fought since Sean Porter. He should be stopping those guys. He's on that level, okay? That's just how it is. But once Danny Garcia gets into a tough fight with Robert Guerrero and he's losing some rounds early or he's losing rounds against Lamar Peterson, well, he should have trouble beating those guys because those are higher level fighters at 147. That's just the way the sport is. You know, people get fooled and they forget how they felt right after the last fight. We get fooled in that every time, and then we see a good performance right away, and we're like, oh, we get excited. We get excited when Pacquiao beats Tim Bradley for a third time. Because Tim Bradley is a great fighter, but Pacquiao, I think the first fight was the most competitive fight, but I remember my first reaction from the first fight. And my very first reaction was that Pacquiao got robbed. That was my first reaction from the first viewing and the night that I saw it. Yeah, I went back. I realized the commentary was terrible. I realized that Pacquiao wasn't landing as much. The crowd reaction. And even in the third fight, still, the crowd gets crazy whenever he throws any kind of combination, even if they're not landing. The crowd reaction, you get caught up with the commentary, you get caught up in all of that stuff in your first reaction. That's just how it is in boxing. That's how it is in boxing. And I wouldn't be surprised for Max Kellerman. I seen on uh, uh, barbershop conversations. All right, subscribe to them. I was watching a video where they had an interview with Roy Jones asking about Max Kellerman's comments, and Roy was trying to clean it up. He was like, "Listen, I'm not trying to start any big thing. Max, I don't think he really means that Floyd is in the era. Pacquiao's greater than Floyd as far as this era, and he's trying to clean it all up. He's trying to clean it all up, and it just goes to show the disagreements these guys have. They don't necessarily believe what the other guy says. Roy might feel one way, Kellerman might feel another way, Lampley might feel another way. These guys have opinions just like we do. Okay, just because Floyd or because Roy has been in a ring and he's a all-time great, it doesn't mean what he says is necessarily true. So I think people need to relax. They don't need to go into go too deep into it. I was listening to Eagles' video like I told you. It was a great video, but we've had these debates for years already. He just brought up all the points that we've been arguing for years, and he brought it up well. He did a great job in that video for 40 minutes to listen to all the reasons why Floyd Mayweather is the best in this era over Manny Pacquiao. You beat Tim Bradley for a third time, or many people feel for a third time in a row. Okay, you didn't fight. And I'm not trying to listen. I like Manny Pacquiao, but just like him, just like videos where I'm with Floyd, I did about done with Floyd. I love Floyd, but there's videos that I made about Floyd that weren't positive videos, because I'm not no Floyd Mayweather stand. I'm not gonna do it, But when it came to Pacquiao, he fought Marquez 4 times and fought Bradley 3 times. Okay, he also fought Algieri and Rios. All right, in between those fights. All right, he did not fight He did not fight Maidana. He did not fight Canelo. He did not fight Amir Khan. He didn't fight Brooke, Thurman, Sean Porter. Okay, Danny Garcia. All right. There's plenty of people that he did not fight. He did not fight that other people want to see Floyd fight, or Floyd did fight. Okay? He didn't fight Guerrero. Okay? There's plenty of guys at 147 that he did not fight. He didn't fight Andre Berto. He didn't fight Victor Ortiz. Okay? There are plenty of guys over the past years that he's been at 147 that he did not fight. He did not fight. Okay, even guys at time rate. He didn't fight Jesse Vargas yet. He did not fight Sandam Ali. These are guys that were ranked at the WBO that Pacquiao did not fight. He fought Tim Bradley over and over again. Now, Tim Bradley could probably beat most welterweights. Okay, he could probably beat most welterweights. But if you are used to fighting a guy over and over again and you know how to beat him, unlike Marquez, who got better at fighting Pacquiao as the years went on, Pacquiao got better at fighting Bradley as the years went on. It's like the first fight was the most competitive one, the closest one. I think most people would agree that that was the closest fight. But when it came to when it came to Bradley, Pacquiao got better at fighting Tim Bradley. He got better at it. If there's a fourth fight, guess what's going to happen? Same outcome, same outcome. All right. I mean, with this, they sold it based off, all right, Pacquiao, Bradley has a better chance. Pacquiao hasn't fought in a year. Pacquiao is coming off of a loss against Floyd. He's coming off of a arm surgery. He's getting older. And now look at Tim Bradley. He has Teddy Atlas now. He's coming off of a knockout win, So maybe he has a better chance. This is the best Tim Bradley. And that's the way they sold the fight. That's the way I predicted the fight. Well, I didn't even predict it. I didn't give a prediction. But I brought up these points in the video when I spoke on this fight. I said, I don't know who's going to win. Because I don't know if Teddy Atlas is going to have a huge impact on Tim Bradley. We seen him beat Brandon Rios. But, did Brandon Rios beat anyone that's really good? No, he hasn't. He hasn't. That was expected. Algieri, has he beaten anyone that's really... he's about to fight Errol Spence. If Errol Spence beat him, or if Errol Spence stops Algieri, how great of an opponent was Algieri against Manny Pacquiao? Khan beat Algieri. A lot of people feel that Provodnikov won that fight against Algieri. All right, so I think people need to just relax. All right, it's not a big deal. They want to... Max could only... It's just Max's opinion, all right? If he feels that way, if he feels that Pacquiao is the best in his era, then fine, whatever. He might not even believe that. He might just be saying it to help, build the fight. Because they're going to make money off of that. They want another fight with Floyd Mayweather. They're going to make more money. They don't want to move on. Everybody's want to stick on Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. Nobody really wants to move on from those two and talk about all these other fighters that we have in boxing. All these other fighters that we have at 147. There's plenty of other fighters at 147 to go right back into talking about these two. I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch. If they have it, I'm going to watch it. But I'd rather see Floyd or Pacquiao. I'd rather see Floyd fight Tim Bradley. I'd rather see Manny Pacquiao fight Kell Brook. Or Amir Khan. I'd rather see Floyd fight Keith Thurman. Or Pacquiao fight Keith Thurman. All these guys I just named a minute ago that Pacquiao did not fight. He did not fight a lot of these guys. Floyd didn't fight some of them neither. But, at least he mixed it up for the most part. He had a rematch with Maidana because the first fight was close. And he wanted to prove, listen, that fight was close. That fight was very close. And I think Pacquiao and Bradley was definitely deserving of a rematch because the first fight was close. But after he beat him in the second fight, it's like, all right, do we need a third? Did we need a fourth Marquez fight with Pacquiao? No, we didn't. We really didn't need that fourth fight. So anyway, Max Kellerman and his he said over the whole weight division thing, I think even a lot of Pacquiao fans, is he really greater just because of that one reason? Because he was a smaller guy and he moved up more divisions. Okay, you can't, and that's what Eagle was saying in his video. You can't just base it off that one thing. Maybe he could make a better argument if you gave him more time. Max Kellerman, I'm probably sure if you were to make an argument, if I said, Max, me and Max have a 30 minutes to just debate on who was better in this era. I'm sure if you gave Max more time, he would say more things. But I'm not feeding into it. Because I honestly believe that either Max don't really believe what he just said, and he's just trying to build Floyd possibly coming back to fight Pacquiao in a rematch, or maybe he just maybe he really want to see the rematch. Maybe he wants to see it, and he's not doing it because HBO told him to do it or anything. Maybe he just feels like, I want to see a rematch because maybe Floyd, maybe Pacquiao wasn't hurt. Maybe him being hurt had affected the fight. Look how great he looked against Tim Bradley in the third fight. I want to see, he could be just as hyped as every other fan is after a fight. You know, it could be just for that reason. I don't know why everyone is feeding to it into it like that. You know, but I didn't even mean to make this video this long. It's just it's just so many things just popped up in my head just now while I was talking about this. But I'm not gonna do, guys. And before this fight was signed, before Pacquiao and Mayweather was signed, I rarely made videos about that. All right, because I didn't think the fight would ever happen. And I know the views, and you get the most views when you're discussing Pacquiao and Floyd and everything. I don't really care for the views that much. I really don't. I just made a video on Kama Guy and Soto Karass. You know, nobody really cares about those two. They usually lose. So, they don't have no huge fan base. I don't really care about the views like that. And I'm not going to get back into making a bunch of Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather videos. I see it coming, though. I see it coming, and this is why this sport is good enough as dead, because nobody knows how to speak about nothing else but these two. They might speak on Ward and Triple G and Kovalev, but outside of that, nobody really wants to speak on anything else but those two all the time. I already see it coming back around. All right, so but people will do whatever they want to do. But I think the Max Kellerman thing, it is what it is. Those guys say a lot of stupid stuff. Those guys on HBO, they say a lot of ridiculous things. Jim Lampley, he said plenty of dumb things too. Letterman's cards, there's a lot of Letterman cards I don't agree with. But you know what? I mean, there's a lot of people that disagree with me. I'm not saying what I say is right neither. That's his opinion. If Kellerman believes that, then let him believe whatever he wants. Who cares? All right, I'm gonna get out of here because I made this video too long. I got a bunch of videos to do anyway. So be on the lookout for those. A lot of other predictions. I just dropped a lot of prediction videos the other day, and I'm gonna drop a whole bunch more right now. So be on the lookout for that, and make sure you subscribe to the channel.